Hello, hello. All right, you guys, again, working remotely while working remotely. I am just in a different room. Hopefully, it won't have to be this long anymore because I just got my cast on today, and they said I might not have to elevate it as much after this, which will be nice. So that means I can maybe sit back down at my desk next week and work from there and have it a little bit more normal, but like I said, bear with me while things are kind of going on. Let me get to. I want to be on my YouTube channel so I can see what the heck kind of question there might be. Oh gosh. I don't know if anyone else is tired today, but I am wiped. Let me see here. Just 1 second. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I have to search for it and I have to use my TV. Anyways, how is everyone doing today? How was your day in between? I will say this. You guys have been doing freaking awesome on getting your stuff in. Like, you guys have all pretty much. Okay, cool. We are live there. Let's see. I want to see the chat. Cool. Okay. Cool. Let me know if you're in the chat. Usually Sarah is. So, Sarah, if you say something, hopefully I'll see it on there. And if not, it might be a little delayed, but I'll get it at some point. Oof. Let me scoot up a little bit in my chair. Oops. Did not mean to do that. Okay, so let's kind of get the ball rolling here. We today are going to go over your guys' questions for this week, your participation grade. Oh, okay, I'm so sorry for this, the yawning. And then we're gonna go ahead and finish up doing the robot arm. There's a couple there's actually something I kind of want to adjust when I was looking at it and then kind of looking at the the what was I gonna say? Example that's in Canvas. Um, where the arm really doesn't stop in the air, and so I want to kind of redo that little section right there for you guys and show you what it looks like if the arm like follows through all the way and doesn't just kind of stop midair because we don't really want it to. It's looking stiff to me, and that's kind of what I noticed while watching mine and then watching the examples that we have up on Canvas. And so we're going to adjust that, and then we're going to add the ball so that's flying in the air, and then some final touches on there so that you guys can turn this in for next week. And then next Tuesday, I'll actually go over your guys' revision rounds. So, um, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm hoping that doesn't last all day. I might need to sit in a different position. But yeah, and so we'll go over and give you guys kind of feedback on we'll look through that revision round. I might give you a little bit more feedback, which then we will implement that feedback into our reel once we put our reel together. So let's open up the questions for today. Isn't this just such a nice little lovely background, by the way? I would like to take a second to just recognize how peaceful that looks and how I totally want to be here like all the time. All right, cool. I have it open. Submissions. All right, Eric, let's start with you. I'm going to kind of. Actually, hold on. Let me adjust something. I think this is working. Let me know if you can hear it, Sarah, when I play it. I don't know how it sounds, though, because I don't have my mic hooked up today. I'm just using my laptop mic. I think it's this one. No, no, let me delete that. Okay, I'm just gonna kind of play this and hopefully it's not too loud. That is so weird. Okay, let me see. That's a really good question, Eric. I am not quite sure why it is doing that. Have you tried possibly like uninstalling and reinstalling Cinema 4D? Because it should not do that because I believe I don't know if you guys can hear. Can you guys hear this when it plays? I need my mod. Maybe I don't know if it has to do with Eric. I don't know if it has to do with having not having alpha channel marked. It should not have this issue. So it might be something that is going on internally, like with some kind of back end system issue, or not system, but like program issue. Let me look further into that so that I can figure that out for you or kind of help you. Let's see if we can actually look it up. This one. Everything was working fine and C4D was rendering in PNG, but then I restarted my Mac. No. And when I download it again, it doesn't save anything in what I want it to, like a PNG sequence or JPEG. It just renders everything as a .aec. Make sure you have save ticked in the regular image section of the save menu under render settings. It's ticked. If you don't need the AEC file, untick save under the compositing project file. So under your project file information, you would untick the thing. But see if unticking this right here, if unticking this and then re-ticking it back on, like unselect it, reselect it, see if that works for you. And then let me know if you're still having issues with this. Definitely write me because I don't want this to be, because that is like, what a pain, dude. I can't believe you've been dealing with this for so long and haven't said anything yet because that's such a pain in the, and I would just be like, oh my gosh, I can't handle this at this point. So we'll try and figure out what's going on here for you, Eric, so that you don't have to go through that extra step of that process because just takes up time. Let's see what else other people say. That's what I've been doing, but then I get nothing when rendering a PNG sequence. Still doesn't work. Screenshot. This might have to be, it looks like this was 6 years ago. I mean, this was a while ago. Here's one that's recent. What? Stupid. I hate that crap. We might have to contact, Are you getting a code error or anything like when it comes like when this happens, or is it just exporting as a file? I'm also curious about that. Yeah, just kind of update me on that, Eric, and we'll figure it out for you because I don't want you to have to keep dealing with that. So, anyways, let's move on to Brandon. You're wanting to take this composition and add it to another one? I'm confused. If that's all you want to do, all you got to do is click and drag that down. Um, all you have to do is drag it. Ooh, wrong side. Just click that and drag it down to here and drop it in that way. Just having like a different composition. Like if you wanted to drop this fading type composition into this custom context one, your custom contact one, then you would just grab this and then click and drag it into this one. You can click and drag it onto the scene itself as well. You just have to make sure that you're in a separate composition right here and don't double click. If you double click, it's going to just open it by default. So let me know if that works for you, Brandon. All right, that was a quick one. Brian. Okay, yeah. I'm just gonna start repeating. I'm not quite sure if you guys can hear it or not. I don't think anyone's watching at the moment, so um hold on. I have an idea. I hope you guys don't hear. It sounds like you're not actually hearing the questions. It's not like capturing my audio from. Yeah, I'm just gonna start repeating. I'm not quite sure if you guys can hear it or not. I don't think anyone's watching at the moment. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna repeat the questions that you guys ask and just answer them that way. But Brian's basically asking if there's any tips or any um, suggestions that I'm going to give for this 3 scene animation that you guys are going to do on your own, or any other techniques that you guys should know. And that's kind of why the reason I would have taught you guys how to do the robot arm technically before the butterfly project, because the robot arm teaches you rigging, which we're learning right now, which is important, um, I think, for this specific project right here, especially once you start um, deciding, like having your own designs and deciding your own storyline, right? So that's basically the one technique that I wanted you guys to learn before we really dive deep into this particular project right here. I'm just leaving it open at the moment because we are going to get to it, just probably not for another couple weeks. And yeah, this rigging, the whole rigging technique is something that would work really well with this as depending on what kind of elements or designs that you want to add in there. Like even here it mentions like the robot arm and the butterfly, using the multi-part animated elements that are rigged, using parenting, which you guys are learning right now. So this basically this week's class is something that will really go well with integrating it into this project. And also, the other thing I really recommend you guys doing is sticking to something with facts, like I said, nonfiction. So, um, we want, I don't want to really see anything on like, Star Wars or things like that are based in a fictional um world, even though I love all that stuff too. It's just easier and it becomes less of a hassle writing a script and like figuring out topics when it has to do with like nonfiction stuff. So I would really kind of stick with this what do I want to say? Like this layout or this guide of how we did the butterfly project, a similar type of like use the butterfly project kind of like a template when creating this one. And then actually towards the end of the semester, we're going to be doing a bigger project where you guys have to create um one, but it has to use 3D elements as well into it. So for now, though, learning the rigging and stuff, that's important. And then um really just writing things out and planning. Those are the biggest things I can tell you will be for this. And don't worry, if you don't want to get like the Artists of Promise submissions ended this past Tuesday, so you can't submit to that. So if you want to just kind of start, if you guys want to start like illustrating or giving me ideas on what you want to create something with, like if you're like, hey, I want to do one on blue whales, or if I want to do one on I don't know, like the spider monkey or something like that, like let me know and we can kind of start fleshing out ideas together. We can brainstorm as a class. And that can be something that you guys maybe even I'll allow that for like participation stuff as if you guys want like have an idea and want to bring it to me and have it like kind of fleshed out and want to go over it in class during a participation one, especially if you don't have any questions about anything, that would be a good one to use as well. So, good question though, Brian. And if you have any more, just let me know, okay? All right, Zoe. So Zoe's having the issue where she's bringing things into Cinema 4D and they're ending up black, and that's because there's no like texture on it right now. So you're gonna have to add a material. So just go into your material thing or go up here and just set a basic material for it and drop it onto your backdrop, and then it'll show something in here. And then don't forget to like add lights and stuff in here as well. But yeah, just tell me if that works. It should. Lee. Yep, well, just posting it on Canvas right now, Lee, because we'll go over these questions or we'll go over the revision round in class on next Tuesday. So you guys have a little bit of time to get it in as well. You guys mostly everyone has gotten them in on time, which is great. You know, like I'm still not going to be really hard on these deadlines at the moment. Just when we come up to our right next revision, I want to see all the other any work that you've been laid on done by the time we do another revision or by the time we start putting our reel together. And so, like I said, if you guys don't want to have to like put in a massive effort to get everything done at once again, just kind of try and keep up on these things. And it seems like everyone is doing that so far. So good job. Kaylee. So one of Keely's first question here is that when you create something in Cinema 4D and you make a change in it, does it translate over to After Effects? And it does not because you actually have to render out your animation in Cinema 4D as a PNG sequence. So any changes that you make to the actual project inside of Cinema 4D have to be re-rendered again. So that is the answer to that part one question. Kaylee's also mentioning that when she's been making the changes in Cinema 4D and re-rendering them, which is exactly what you should do, so you've been on the right track with that. But that when she brings it into After Effects, she feels like the colors are changing a little bit more, or she's like they're not as bright. Also, that the motion seems to be a little bit different than what she's seeing inside of Cinema 4D. And it could be because um, what you're seeing happen inside of Cinema 4D, right, is something that um, it's taking your computer a second to process that. So it's gonna appear slower sometimes, possibly, until it's like fully there's like a full render preview is what it's called. Basically, what your computer does is it creates a preview render that your computer reads off of so it can play it back to you in real time. And that takes a lot of work. And so that can sometimes be a little bit slower than what really shows up when you render it. But from what I've seen of your stuff, Kaylee, it looks pretty good. So oh, I don't think you really have much of a problem there with that. Let me know. I can see maybe a brighter spot there. Like it's a little bright there, but it's kind of hard because I'm looking at my screen to through your phone at your screen to the like it's like an inception. It's kind of crazy. Like an inception situation, but um that might be able to be fixed if you drop on this layer, like your PNG sequence, if you put on a levels adjustment or if you want to put on a curves adjustment from your effects, and then you can just kind of bump the colors and saturation and stuff that way. So you can always try that if you want to, but it looks okay right now. Well, I guess I'll get a better view when we go over your guys' revisions next week. All right, next. But yeah, that was Kaylee's question. By the way, Kaylee, I know you're in California. I hope everything's okay. Nolan. Nolan's asking if there's a way to customize this blur, like when you're adding blur onto your stuff, if you can customize it with these, like if there's any way to essentially go inside of it and change things. And there's not. Really, it's just like you were saying, is having to throw the effect on there and then adjust the effect, like the Gaussian blur or something, or a fastbox blur. All right. Quick questions this week. I know we didn't have a lot last time, but Janelle. All right, Janelle's having an issue where this her backdrop is appearing to have like this weird shadow. That is kind of weird. Is your backdrop is no, it's the original one. Let me see. You might have to change right under your video. There's like a, I believe this will say roundness or something like that. Like this one right here. I would check that. There's a way to like smooth it out a little bit more. So I would try doing that. But this kind of looks a little funny. Maybe just moving your lights around. That might be something that will update this a little bit. Don't forget to turn on shadows on your lights because I mean this isn't the render preview, but hopefully it's not like a render preview, but when you do run your preview it, just make sure you turn the shadows on inside of your lights as well. So I would do that. I would also like, if for some reason that's still not working, I would just bring a new backdrop in. Search up here in your, oh, sorry guys, that's my little mouse. How annoying. Anyways, go into the archive of like assets they have and just type in backdrop and throw a new one in there and see if you're still coming up with the issue. Because if you are, then we can determine it's not the actual backdrop, it's something else that's happening that is causing this issue. So, um, try that out, Janelle, and let me know if it works, okay? And we have Jessica.
My question is on the racing animation.
Uh-huh.
Like this one?
So Jessica's question is, I hope you guys can't hear these questions or it's going to be annoying me repeating them. But Jessica's wondering if that you can use the same technique that you use that is used on the tails or like limbs of like an octopus or something with the puppet tool. If you can use that same technique on a small creature or something um when when going to animate that, and you can you can use here. Let me see if I have an example. Let me see. Personal projects. I think I have an example of when I've used. Maybe I can't find it. It was like a Halloween invite I made last year for my friends. And I used the puppet tool to create like a wiggle kind of movement in a. Wait, let me just slowly read through here. Where it went? Party invites. Haha, that's where I put it under. But I used a puppet tool to create this kind of wiggle motion in a ghost. Wrong. That's just the end. Did it not play the whole thing? Oh, right here. You can notice that same thing. Put I used the puppet tool around these areas. I think I put one here, here. Here, let me do this. I put one like right here to wiggle them up here. I used the puppet tool and I put a couple points down here as well. And then I believe maybe some right here and then one up here. So I took this illustration I had of a ghost and then put all those puppet pins on the ghost and then just animated them separately and looped it so that it created kind of like this moving ghost appearance thing. So, yeah, you can use it for certain things. It has to work within the context um, of whatever you're creating, right? Like if you're going to make an animal that doesn't move like that, then what's the point? But if you're going to do something like a jellyfish, right, where a jellyfish is kind of like a big blob anyways, and it kind of moves like that, or a snake, where a snake kind of moves in like that whole like slithering wave kind of motion, then yeah, by all means, you can apply the puppet tool to it. But if you're going to be animating, um, well, you could animate limbs like of like a dog or something. You could do it, but you just want to make sure it's more of a rigid movement. It's harder to animate it that way with the puppet pin tool, and to make it look believable. I've seen people do it. It's a harder way to do that kind of stuff, but it can be done. So if you want to try it out, you're more than welcome to. And then I can always give you feedback on it and we can think of different techniques to work with because I know that he was using Duick, which is a rigging. Duick is a rigging like extension for After Effects that is free that you guys all can download. I believe it's in the link there. And you can use that for a lot of things. You can create bones and stuff for characters and connect them to each other with rigging and doing different techniques like that. So, yeah, now that you guys know how to rig, there's some good tutorials on using Duick as well. I used a different one that's been paid for, but it was very expensive, so I'm not going to tell you guys how to do that. What's the point? But if you go to like YouTube and you type in Duick, it's called Duick Basil 2, and there's all sorts of things that you can make and use inside of After Effects, like in animating. Mostly people use it because it's a free open source like extension, and so people use it to rig other characters. Jake in Motion, he's a great one to watch. I'm not sure about Keyframe Academy, haven't watched that. There's another one called Limber. There's several different rigging extensions that you can get for After Effects, but Duick happens to be free. So that's the one you guys will want to be looking into if you do that. Good question, though. All right, let's go to Sarah. I'm curious if you guys. So here's Sarah's having an issue where she can't get MP3s or MP4s. MP3 is a music file, MP4 is a video file. So there's a difference in there, Sarah, just so you know. I guess we'll find out right now, but she's having issues with the open your levels on the layer, Sarah. It's not playing a sound. It might also be because I'm not quite sure where you found the source file for it. But it might not be an actual there might be an issue for it. I don't know. Does it play like when you play it on your computer? It probably plays. I want to see the levels on there. So if you just hit L once, so that you can adjust the decibels of it, and then L twice to see the waveform. And let me know if that's like working for you at all, because if it's not showing any of that either, then go back here. Yeah, it's definitely not playing audio. Is it working with, that's a weird, huh? Also, I would suggest then uninstalling and reinstalling After Effects and seeing if that one works. Uninstalling and reinstalling the program really shouldn't take too long. Maybe like 15 minutes total from like uninstalling it and then finding everything and reinstalling it. And it won't affect your program files. It'll just affect the actual software itself. So I would do that first and see if that works. If it doesn't work, try bringing in a different MP4 or MP3 from some other location or source, right? Like if you got this from a specific online source, try getting an MP3 from a different online source and see if that works. And then if that works, then we know that it's something to do with the file and not something to do with After Effects. And that's kind of how you just that's really how you troubleshoot issues that you're running into with software is you're like, okay, well, where does this work and where doesn't it work? Does it work with something else? Does it not work with something else? If it's not working with something else, then maybe it's the software. If it is working with somewhere else, then maybe it's the file. Do the files work in a different program? Kind of things like that, and just really experimenting with the issue that you're running into. And that's really how you end up troubleshooting this stuff. But you guys, if this kind of stuff keeps up going, just shoot me like a Slack message or send me an email, and I'm happy to help work through this issue with you and try and figure it out because this hinders your guys' ability to work and get your homework turned in. So I don't want that for you guys. I don't want it to be a hassle. So we'll work it out together, okay? Angelina,
So,
first of all, I'm assuming Angelina, you started to record, then, or you thought you were recording your participation question, and then it for some reason wasn't recording. And then you said that you had a dumb question, which is not true, okay? No questions are dumb. Questions are there for a reason. We all have to figure them out.
like, is there a way
The, that is funny. So yeah, the curve. She's asking if the curve looks okay, and I would say generally, yeah, it's getting there, right? You want about the same distance in between these sections right here, in between like the ebbs and flows of these curves, right? And see, notice how the like this one, it kind of tapers off like this pretty quickly. And then this one's really nice and smooth where the keyframe's up at the top there. And then this one, the keyframe's kind of over to the side and the curve peaks up here, right? So you're going to want to take your Bezier handles and draw this one to that's on the right down a little bit so that it keeps this part in the center, your keyframe up in the highest point of that curve and not kind of off to the side here because this is going to create some overshoot with the hammer and that's what's going to cause it to look a little jerky what you're saying. And then if you want it to bounce off of the ball, just remember that it has to look like a bounce. So the initial keyframe right here has to be like a dramatic drop like this and then bouncing off that and then it'll go into the nice smooth curves like this. Um, versus the one that's a full that hits the one that hits the hammer and follows all the way through is gonna be like a full smooth curve all the way down. And then what'll just happen is it'll start to get shorter in height, right? So this is going to get shorter and shorter and shorter until it comes down and it's like small. But you want the time in between each of these to be the same because it's not going to take longer. It's just going to get the the swing, especially when it comes to um like a back and forth pendulum type swing, it's the same timing on each swing, back and forth, and back and forth. But what happens is it just doesn't go back as far. It doesn't go forward as far. It doesn't go backwards as far. It just slowly tapers down until it's like a flat line, right? And so just making sure that in between these curves is about the same distance and that your keyframes are at the peaks of these curves and not off to the side like this one is slightly. And then that these are nice and smooth and pulled out, and then your bounce one just is going to look a little different there. But in general, no, it looks like you've got a good start on it. You'll just have to add more into here. Also, she mentioned that like how it just kind of stops right here, and that's because you just have to create more until it fully stops or it goes off screen. Like if it's still swinging when the video stops, that's okay. That implies that the motion continues beyond what we see. Right? That in your mind, if you're to watch a video like that, you're not going to think that all of a sudden when the video stops playing that hammer is going to stop swinging. Your mind essentially puts that puzzle piece together and assumes there's an assumption that it's going to keep swinging back and forth until it slowly settles to a stop. And that's like just it's kind of like cutting and just choosing where to have a thing. And you don't want the whole entire thing in here. It'd be a really long video, and it'd be really boring just sitting and waiting for the hammer to stop. But yeah, good question there. All right, Juliana. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, you can record the audio in OBS and put it into After Effects if you have a microphone. Like the best, like I would say that good options for mics are like if you guys have a gaming headset to use that. If you guys do have a microphone, like an external microphone that's connected up to your computer, use that if possible. Right now, my audio probably sucks because it's just a laptop. And it sounds totally different. I mean, those laptop mics are not meant to be good. So you don't want to record it on there, right? You want to record it from, you could even use like earbuds, like if you have iPad earbuds and you want to record it, like the AirPods and stuff, you could do it that way and it might sound a little bit better. And then, yes, you can record it through OBS and then it'll save. And then you just have to go through and find where it's saving your stuff at. Um, and then you'll just have to find it at that point. Or you can have it saved to your desktop or wherever you want. You'll have to go through your settings option to do that. Or what you're going to use is this is the best option though, is to use Adobe Audition, which is, do I have Audition installed? I do, which is right here. It comes with your guys's Adobe, it comes with the Adobe program, like the Adobe Cloud or whatever. And then what you're going to do in here is you're just going to hit this little button here that says record. You'll title your track, not text, test, dear. I'll hit OK, and then it's recording me as I talk right now. And then when you're done, you'll just hit you shift space, and then it stops the recording. If I play it, plays back. So, and then you go to File, Save As, and you can save it that way. And this way, you can come in here and you can actually like, this is nice. You guys are gonna get a little bit of a. Here's a lesson for you guys to edit audio. Like, let's say this is a breath here. Let's say this is a spot where I'm like taking a breath to get into a longer sentence and you don't want to hear that. You just highlight it. You take your little cursor and you're going to highlight over it. And you'll just come up here to the decibels and you'll just turn those down. And notice the waveform turns down. And then all of a sudden, when you play it back, it wouldn't be there, right? If that were a breath. Now there's also another thing if you guys have a lot of room tone. So if you find that your audio when you record it, you can hear a lot of things in the background like you can hear your air conditioner or your heater kick on, you can hear kids playing outside, you can hear your breath, you can hear just kind of room noises. What you do is before you start saying anything in your recording, you want to just all you have to say is room tone and then you stay quiet for a few seconds and you allow your mic to pick up that room tone. And then what you do is you will select that room tone section, just the section where it's quiet. You're not saying anything, you're just listening to all the sounds that your room is making and that's happening in your environment. And you'll select that section. And then what you do is you come up here to effects and down to noise reduction and restoration, and you're going to capture that noise print. It's also Shift P. It says it's the current audio selection will be captured and loaded as a noise print for the use of the next time the noise reduction effect is launched. So it'll save that. You just say okay. So you have to do this new every time, right? And then you will go back up to the effects and you'll go back to the noise reduction and you'll go to noise reduction process. And here you can, don't click output noise only because if you do this, um, it's just going to let you listen to what you're cutting out, which is okay. But if you don't uncheck that by the time you hit apply, it will only like it'll almost like invert the process. And then the only thing you'll hear is the room tone. So then you'll have to go back and undo it and fix all that stuff. But then once you get your your room tone captured and you're in here, you can reduce it by this many decibels, your noise reduction or percentage, and then decibels here. So if I want to drop by like, if I'm like, oh, increase it by this many decibels or decrease it by this many, and then, the percentage, bring the percentage down, and you can play it here to hear what it sounds like. It'll play through the entire audio, or it'll play through your entire selection. I will say this, after you capture that noise print, so I'll go through the process real quick one more time. We're here, you can go up to effects, noise reduction and restoration, capture that noise print, hit OK. The next thing you do is select the entire track. I almost forgot to tell you guys that. So select the entire track, then go to effects, noise reduction, restoration, back to noise reduction process, and then you go through and do that. And then when you play it, it'll play, and then you can hear how much of a difference it's removing that noise tone. Remember when you're doing this, and then you'll apply it, and then it'll apply to the entire track. But when you're doing this, it's best to do it with headphones on. That way you can hear the difference of what's happening when you're removing noises. But yeah, that's a quick audition's the best option to record your audio. But if for some reason you have to record it inside of OBS, I'm not going to be upset. If that works for you and you know how to do it and you know where your files are at, go ahead and do that. I'm going to
Or
continue
does
playing
it
this. Yeah, no video to it. Juliana's saying that she's been thinking about it a lot, but hasn't made up her mind on a topic, which is normal. I think that's actually kind of like having free range of your own design can be difficult, especially if you either don't have a lot of creative flow happening at the time or you have too much and can't make up your mind. That can also be hard too. So you guys can throw ideas to me. You can just shoot me a Slack and be like, "Hey, I'm thinking about this for my design my own 3 scene animation." And I will definitely like check that out with you. And then we could talk about facts that you guys want to talk about with the 3 scene animations. And then once we get a moving on this project, you guys will have a little bit of a head start, right? So that's kind of great that you guys are thinking about this now and looking into it and trying to pick a topic because it gives you a little bit more time to do that. Versus if this were just a week Like if I were just like, hey, this week we're doing this one, you guys don't get as much time to sit and really just melt with the idea and try and figure out what you want to do. So good question though, Juliana, because I haven't gone over Adobe Audition yet, but now you guys know a way to record your audio. All right,
I
Bear.
know. Totally nice.
Yeah, Bear's. See, this is. Let me pause this. So Bear had entered had submitted a video that was the for the three scene animation, and it was for I'm so sorry if I don't know which artist it was, but just a rapper that Bear likes. And then Bear was like, I reread the module and realized like it had to be nonfiction and this and that. And so now is asking like if Bear wanted to do one on Michael Jackson, could they put it into like a character animator and then reverse things and make Michael Jackson moonwalk, which is would be difficult. Like I don't think I've ever made a moonwalk happen. But we could always try it if you rig up a character inside of you could use the character animator, and try and rig up Michael Jackson that way. You can also illustrate pieces of Michael Jackson, I know, and then you can use your camera to make movements. That's a cool thing about character animator. And unfortunately we don't have like any assignments yet where we use character animator in this class. Um, Maybe that's something I can talk to the department about integrating into the curriculum at some point. But you guys can use character illustrator or character animator to bring your illustration and rig them all up that way, and then you can use the camera to capture your motion and then just fine tune that as well. So if you want to try that, you can, Bear. I wouldn't be upset. We could figure it out. I'm going to continue the rest of your question. Yeah. Bear's discussing about how when we were going over the monarch butterfly project and the wing, you had to flip it and reverse it in order for the wing to be in the correct position and going on the path correctly. And was just talking about their journey through going through that process.
I fixed everything else that I thought.
That one was kind of tricky. Cool. Making it linear won't make it move faster because Bear's talking about the real and surreal project and updating the camera movement uh from easing, right? Because it's naturally eased inside of Cinema 4D, and then making sure that it's not easing and making it linear. When things are linear, remember you guys, they move at the same speed. There is no change in speed. It's just back and forth at the same speed, and that's why we say you'll hear all of us in the department who work in animation say that linear is bad because most things in life that you see are not going to be linear. Um, I can't think of an example other than a camera motion that is linear. And even with a camera movement, right, you have to think like it has to start somewhere and end somewhere. So it's going to speed up at first and then it's going to move at a constant rate. And then when you're done with that shot, it's going to, stop or slow down and stop when you're done, when you're done taking that shot. But what you don't here's the thing that you don't see that slow up in that or that speed up and that slow down because in post production you bring that footage into like Premiere and you cut those off so that it is one smooth continuous motion that has no speeding up or slowing down. And so I would just check your keyframes on there, Bear. If you need to extend your keyframes out, remember the closer the keyframes are to each other, the faster the motion. So if you need to distance your keyframes from each other to extend the speed of like to slow down the speed of the camera, you can absolutely do that. And in fact, that keyframe can go off of the timeline past where you're going to render, right? So it's like going to continue to go almost like the hammers do, right? The curve continues and the animation continues past when the render is going to be processed or however long your render is going to be, but we're just cutting it off early. And then, oh, you did mention the picture, having trouble with adding a picture to the frame. We'll talk about doing that again. It's kind of funny. I think it's dependent on each picture frame that you use from the asset browser, depending, I guess, on who modeled it and how they textured the photo. If you go back and use the same frame that I used, it'll work that way because there's different, oh, here you go, different locations on where that image will stay inside of the material edit like settings. Um, and so it just takes a little playing around with to figure out where specifically it needs to be. I hope it's submitted on time for you, Bear. Good job on it though. It was really cool and interesting. But yeah, just redo it as a nonfiction one because I don't want to bend the rules and I'm like, oh, you can do a fiction one, and then everyone else can be like, well, I wanted to do this, and then I'm like, So, yeah, just redo that one. It was great for the artist of promise, but for the actual assignment, just yeah, redo it and make it to be something that's realistic and set in the real world, I guess, more or less than and just factual because we have to have the voiceover with the facts over it. So, good job though, Megan. What a beautiful question, Megan. Yes, absolutely. So Megan asked if it has to be about a plant or an animal, or can it be about a country and that country's traditions and or their food or their culture. And I love that idea. I think that's great. We do have there's a couple examples on there where it talks more about like different cultural traditions um and foods and things that take place in that culture. And I would love to see that because, I know my cultures. I'm half Mexican, so I know about the Mexican culture. And then my other half is like Hungarian Polish, and I know a little bit about that culture, but I don't know much about um, a ton of other people's cultures. I do know some, about some of my friends that are from the Philippines or from Vietnam, or I have friends, and I've been to Australia and New Zealand, so I know some cultural things about there. But I think we all love to absorb and find out that knowledge, and I think that's really important to spread that knowledge onto others and like bless people with new foods and traditions that they might not know about. So that's a great idea. That's a good one too. Thank you for reminding us about that it can be about cultures and traditions or food or different places, as long as it's factual information. Like if you wanted to do one quickly on like a periodic an element on the periodic table, I wouldn't be upset about that either. You could absolutely do that, and then we can figure it out about that as well. Just stick to something simple and not super complex, because the more complex it is, the more you're going to want to write, and then you're going to all of a sudden have a 3-minute animated video that's going to take you the rest of the semester, if not more, to complete. And that unfortunately can't happen right now, but um just picking like a few major facts about like the aspect of something is a great idea. I think that's awesome. Good question, Megan. All right, and Nick. Yeah, so that's a great question, Nick. So Nick's question, it revolves around like why you can't open multiple tabs inside of After Effects, and I agree with you. I think it's super annoying that you can't do that. Because you can open like in Premiere in for video editing, you can open multiple projects inside of Premiere and have them running concurrently and jump from project to project. But After Effects doesn't do that, and it's really lame. I agree with you. And I think that it boils down to how much um RAM that After Effects uses, because it's an intense program on computers because of how much of your GPU it uses up and how much of your RAM it's using at the same time. And so I think that is why your computer started crashing, because I've tried it before and the same thing happened to me. Um, my system would start to crash, and then I'd be like, oh my gosh, this sucks. So, what you want to do, the best practice to do this in, Nick, and thank you for bringing this up, because, I didn't think of this as something that you guys would really encounter. This wasn't a perspective of mine that I had, so I appreciate you bringing this to the table. But how it should be done is you'll open the original project file, you will make the edit changes, you'll render that video out, and you will then continue on down the line and do the same thing to the other projects that you have to update. You'll you'll save that one that you just did the edits to, you'll close it out, you have the render all done of your changes, and then you're going to go to the next project, you're going to make the changes, you're going to save it, export it out as another MP4, yada yada yada. And then what you do is once you've made all the changes and you've re-exported those videos out, you will create a new After Effects file that is specifically for your revisions. And then just composite them all together in that one file. And then if you guys want to, you can get ahead of yourself and make a real project folder. And when I say real, it's not like REAL. I'm saying like a video reel, REEL. And so you can create a real project file and then just pretty much put these videos into there with your edits and kind of get it set up for it's kind of future templating for the project once we get to it, because we're eventually going to take all of these projects and we are going to put them into a reel together so that you guys have something at the end of class, to possibly start looking for jobs with, once you get further into the program. But let me continue this and see if you ask anything else. Good question, though. It is so frustrating. Yeah. And importing it all into one project, it might have worked for you. Let me know if that made it crash or not, because I'm curious of if it had any issues or if it didn't have any issues. Um, but because it would make the only thing that I think would happen is that project file then that you've imported all of those projects into would be massive. Like the size of it would be really big, and it could just be like take a long time to open and maybe take a long oh, excuse me, take a long time to run. Man, I feel like I'm hiccuping and yawning a lot. There's I'm having technical difficulties today by myself, but it's because I'm in a weird angle. I'm still bedbound. I feel like such a dork, um but yeah. Yeah, let me know if that caused any issues because the projects if that they're not really, I mean, they're not massive projects. So it might not have caused an issue right now. Like the biggest project you guys have done is the 3 scene animation with the monarch butterfly. But besides that, the rest of them probably could easily be imported into a new After Effects file. But it might just be easier just going into the originals, like I said, and changing, rendering, opening and closing it that way. But if you're interested, Nick, you and I can write Adobe and write them wedge a complaint to them and let them know that we want multiple tabs in Adobe After Effects. So, but good questions this week, you guys, and let's kind of jump back into. I'm gonna just take a couple seconds here to readjust the way I'm sitting so I can sit up a little bit higher. And then we are going to jump into After Effects and finish up this robot animation. So just one second, I'm gonna mute my mic here. All right, I am back. By the way, I didn't realize that I keep hovering over this and it's showing World Bear Day. That is freaking cool. If anyone wants to do a 3C animation on their bear, on a bear, that'd be sweet. I haven't seen that yet. I love big brown bears, black bears. I think bears are cool. I think it's a really cool animal. Plus, I mean, they're cute. Let's not lie. I wouldn't, by no means, would go up to a bear. I am smarter than that. But I might just be like, oh, it's so cute until I'm there on the ground with multiple lacerations, wishing I didn't. Anyways, sidetracked a little bit. All right, so we're back in After Effects, and here's our robot file. Now, I did just one thing before class here, and I had the ball layer. Let me just kind of close these up so you guys can see everything. This ball layer right here, I had up at the top like this, and I just wanted to move that down so that when the claw came down and these little fingers squeezed up on it, that it's over top of the ball and not below the ball. So I wanted to just change the layer order of where the ball is. And then that's when I started playing it back and realized that I don't really like this section right there where it stops, pauses for a second, and then settles back down. And so we're going to change that. And I actually made this little note right here. This is a good thing for you guys to know because this can mark, this is a great way to mark out timing, especially with audio. And these are called markers, composition markers. And depending on what you're selected on inside of After Effects, will be dependent on where that marker ends up, right? So like if I select this base or this ball, like if I select the ball layer, and then what you hit is the asterisk mark. And what the asterisk looks like is, this is an asterisk. So the little star symbol that's on your keypad. For me, my laptop and my computers both have a number pad on the side, and the asterisk is easily accessible up there. Or if you just hit like Shift 8 on your keyboard, it should bring up the asterisk as well. So when you're selected on a layer, you're going to move your playhead to wherever you want to make that note, or just add a marker, right? It's like putting a sticky note somewhere and be like, right here, do something here. And so I've got it right there, and I'm going to hit that asterisk, and notice that this little marker shows up on your timeline there. Now, if you're not selected on any layer, let's say I'm unselected on anything, and I hit that, the marker actually shows up on the master timeline up at the top, which is really nice. Like if you want to have it stretch across the section and you're like, all right, I want to add a note here and I want this to do this here. And then you can double click on it and you can add comments in there. So like if I was like, oh, slow down the motion of the ball or something like that. Like it can be anything you want it to be. And then you can change the color here, which it'll be the same color options as your labels are. But this is a great little thing, having markers like comment markers and stuff to just remind you to do certain things or to lay out the timing on, especially like on an audio track, right? That's exactly what I use these for most often. Let's say that this ball layer was an actual audio track and I'm all like, okay, scene 1 ends right here, right? Like we're going into the next section of what I want the animation for. So I'll go there and I'll mark it and I'll go in here and type scene 1 end, and then I'll hit OK. And then I'll move further down here and I'm like, okay, this is where this second fact ends or this second section ends. And I'll hit that and then I'll go in and, so on and so forth. And what's nice is if you hold the Alt key and hover over, notice how the little arrow. Ooh, what was that? Oh, you can cut it that way. That's neat. My little Jimmy Deans was clicking on some buttons and found something else weird, but anyways, if you hover over the marker and you see how it has arrows at both ends, and if you just hold the Alt, it changes to like a flat line and an arrow. If you click and drag, it like splits that marker so that it goes over a section. And then you can double click on here and be like scene 1, beginning to end, discussing first fact about bear, right? Like if we were doing that bear thing I was talking about, just as an example. And then I'll be like, oh, but then I want this marker to be the color of orange shoes so that it shows up on my blue layer. And then I do that, and then it changes it so I can easily read it. So just like another, like this is a kind of advanced motion designers, animators will use these to mark timings and things like that. So just a quick side thing for you guys to learn. And so that's where I had here, right? Because I was like, notice this one right here I put in, and it says remove these keyframes. You have to click on the little side thing. Remove these keyframes and adjust. It was a side note to myself to do that. And so then when I select all of these layers and I hit U, you'll notice that it's from this set of keyframes all the way to this one. And so I am going to just take these ones and delete them because I don't like it. And so then we're going to redo this real quick. So we've got it coming in here, grabbing the ball. Looks great. Cocking back. Through, and now we want it to throw the ball, right? So I'm going to move over here. And then I'm going to take the shoulder joint and I'm going to kind of do this again. Because I want it to follow through. I didn't like how it kind of stopped. It like stopped pretty much right here for a second. And then held that position and then went down. It just didn't look that smooth. So I'm going to bring this down here. I'm going to let it follow through. And then I'm going to rotate the link one. Ooh, not link one, because I like where that one's at. Maybe there's fine. And then link two is the one that I want to adjust. Probably bring that in just slightly more. Because I'm going to add a couple more keyframes. And then the wrist joint. And then let's start to close these phalanges, i.e. the grippers or the fingers. Do you guys know that's the technical term for your fingers? Phalanges. I think it's probably one of my favorite words since I was a kid. So notice how the ball's gonna, or the robot's gonna come in here, reach down, grab that ball, hold for a second, it's gonna hover here, it'll pick that ball up, get ready, and it's gonna chuck it, and it's gonna fling down that way. And then we're gonna just kind of have it like come up here. Now let's play it. It's a little slow, and I also kind of want to adjust this one right here. Which one is that? Cool. Bring that one in slightly more. Yeah, that looks good. Oops. I was moved. So I'm going to delete this. Move my there, and then scoot this over right there. Perfect. Let's select these and kind of make it happen a little bit quicker. Because this freeze frame cocks back. Alright, that's not bad. Let's look at the keyframes of these. Let's look at this specific section. Zoom in on that. Move over. Move it over on the timeline. Let's draw, holding down shift, I'm going to draw those out. That looks better, right? Grabs it, throws it. Alright, that's not bad. Could be a little bit faster, but I think I'm going to leave it right here for now, and then if I want to adjust it a little more later, I will. I'm going to save that. I'm going to remove this, let's see. Oh yeah, if you right click on it, you can go to the time, you can delete the marker, all that. You can lock them, that kind of stuff. And so then right here, I kind of want it to come back up and settle back into place. So I'm going to move this shoulder joint. Actually, I like the way this shoulder joint kind of is. Let's put it at 0 so it resets. Well, let's bring that link one kind of back up. And then link 2 back up a little bit. The wrist joint, bring it back down. Looks like it's going to settle back into place. Actually, I want to do that. You see, the grippers, I'm not worried about those moving anymore. They don't have to. Let's try and offset these slightly. So this one's back there. I'm not worried about the base. Okay, the base is not being either. Link 1, rotation. Offset that. Link 2, offset that one. And then the wrist. In fact, now here, like we're offsetting them, right? So this offsetting of those keyframes is essentially going to be adding like a follow through motion to the arm. And so I'm actually going to offset the last two keyframes. So I'm going to do, I'm going to leave the shoulder joint where it is. Then I'm going to move down the line and offset them that way. So then I offset the link. In fact, I'm going to do what I did last time, and I'm going to select kind of all of these and move them at once so that they kind of fall into line there. I'm only going to move ahead a few frames, maybe 1 to 2. So then I offset the link arm, link 2 arm. Now let's offset the wrist. And then we're going to just kind of offset these slightly. I want these to kind of be at the same, on the same timing, the little fingers, the 2 yellow layers there. Let's see what this looks like. Grabs it, throws it, and kind of settles back into place. Notice how it makes it look a little bit more real too when it does that, like settling into place. Almost like it's just kind of flinging back into place, or a little bit looser on its motion back. Let me cut it off right here so that you guys don't have to watch a bunch of blink timing. Just gonna get it, throw it, and then just that follow through really does something to it. And then, so you guys can always follow through there. And then remember, like I said, when it comes down to grab the ball, you might have a few more keyframes in between here, depending on the design of your robot arm and how it grabs this ball, right? Because you don't want it to be overlapping the ball. Notice how mine just kind of goes and it comes down perfectly and it grips it right there. So it's easier to put the ball in right away just as like a placeholder. So you're like, okay, this is where it's going to be. There it gets picked up and there it gets thrown. So that you can update the motion of this, all of this right away. In fact, when the throw happens is when you don't want to do any kind of offsetting. I think I did that last week or on Tuesday. It didn't look that great, so then it falls into place. Cool. Now let's um add the ball. We gotta throw the ball. Obviously it's gotta throw the ball. And so the problem is with the ball, and let me do this real quick so that we're not distracted by all of these keyframes. It's a little jumbled right there. Now the problem with parenting is that you can't animate the parenting, right? So so you can't like just, it's not gonna, you can't just have it. If you parented it to this right now, like let's say I parent it to here once it gets grabs, right? So let's get the ball ground. We're gonna parent it to the grippers. I'll parent it to that one. And so then all of a sudden you notice that when I move, it's moving it to here too, and we don't want that because it has to be on the ground when we pick it up. And so how do we get around that? And the answer is there's no easy way really to get around it. It's kind of an optical illusion that we use. And we're gonna basically create like a switch that's gonna happen so quick that no one's gonna notice it happened because the ball is not gonna be in motion at that moment. Except I think in one part where it's thrown. And so we do this by making 3 different instances of the ball. We are going to have the ball on the ground. We are going to have a ball being held by the arm, and then we're going to have a ball in flight, right? And these are 3 different instances of the ball, and so we're going to create that by creating, we're going to duplicate that ball layer and we're just going to rename it and we're going to just duplicate it at specific points on our timeline. And then we're going to switch to those, each one of those layers, so it'll look like there's really only one ball. So we've got the ball on the ground. Um, you might have to spend some time adjusting keyframes on this. Like if you didn't add the ball right away as a reference, you might have to adjust some of your keyframes for when the grabber comes down and actually grabs a hold of that ball. But right about there, especially when you notice, like when you're a pause in these keyframes, let me just hit U here just to show you guys one of them. This little section right here is where the arm is doing nothing but picking up the ball. And so in that section, we're just going to click on this layer and we're going to hit Alt D, Control Alt D, Shift Control D. I'm sorry. Let me redo this. Let me see. It is, so you guys know, Shift plus Control plus D equals split layer. And so it doesn't do anything. Like even if I had animation on this, it would just split that layer at that spot. And so if you just hold Shift Control plus D, it will automatically do that for you. And so you don't have to just like cut it here, cut the other one. And it's exact. So if I were to move from here to here, either one of them is, it's in the same exact spot. And so then we want to actually take the second layer. We're going to rename it. We're going to say ball carried, right? Here, I'll just put a dash carried. And then this layer right here, this is where we want to parent it to the grippers. And so then you see the balls here, but all of a sudden when it switches to this layer that's parented to the grippers, as soon as the grippers move, the ball goes with it, which is nice, right? And so then we have to do it again, but we have to do it at the point of when the hand, probably right about there, would let go of the ball. Let me see if I want to just, let me see, I might adjust something real quick. Let's adjust this one. I want to adjust it down. Shouldn't do anything, just the link one. Maybe bring this link 2 up. Oh no, let's see what that looks like. Grabs it, pulls it back, tosses it. Okay. So let's have it release right about there. And so right here, we are going to again duplicate this. So Shift Control D to split that layer. We're going to rename it Ball Flight. And this is what I mean by you're having multiple instances of the ball. And then we're going to unparent it from the grippers. And we are going to animate the position. In fact, I think I want to change, before I unparent it and do all that, I want to change the position of the wrist here so that it kind of falls more in line with, yeah, I want the wrist to be kind of down at this point, like heading more of a straight, and let it go right there. Let me see if I play that back if it looks okay. This is what animation kind of is, just like seeing what looks best. I like that the most. And so right there is where, one frame after I added that one, is where I want to unparent this and split this ball layer. So I'm going to select that again. Remember, Shift Control D to split that layer. Then make sure you're selected on the third ball one. We're going to rename it Flight. And then unparent it. None. And then watch, all of a sudden I go that way and it's stuck in the air. So you see how the parenting The switcheroo. That's what Casey Farina likes to call it. The old switcheroo. And I think it's actually the perfect terminology for this because there's really none. It's just like a cut, essentially. And then from here, we're going to animate the position of the ball. Once it's like let go of the ball. Um, and so, yeah, let's just do that. Hit P, and then we're going to keyframe that position. And really, it's only going to happen over a couple frames, and it's just going to fully go off screen, like gone. Bye-bye. Add a little bit of a curve in there if you want to on the path. And then if we look at this, it chucks that ball out of space. You guys like my arm? I've got a heck of a throw. And it's got to be fast. So that's why it just kind of only happens over a couple frames, is because you want it to be fast. But that's really that's how you throw an object. This is how you parent everything together, throw an object inside of there. Let's ease these position keyframes real quick. If you're on a PC, you can just hit F9. And if you're on a Mac, it's function F9. So let me do this so you guys can see. Easing shortcut. PC equals F9. In a Mac, I don't know if anyone is working on a Mac, but if you are, it's function Fn plus F9 if you have that on your keypad. And that will ease your it doesn't change the way the graph looks, but it just eases it. It just does an automatic easing on the ball. And so then I want to make sure that we just have the ball position selected. And I don't need to see all of these. I don't know why. I had this problem last time where it still shows me all of them. I'm going to have to figure out how to remove this jumbled mess of like. Let's figure that out real quick. Let's just Google this. How to unselect parameter in After Effects timeline. Might do it for me. Oh, it's just not going to give me that answer. It's going to give me all sorts of crazy stuff. Anyways, I've eased the ball. Let me go back into this. And I think it's this one right here. This one and this one. This is the position of the ball, yes. Okay, and I'm going to zoom in on it. And then I want to adjust it. Eased it. Come on now. Oh, no, don't change that. Where's my Bezier handle? Something happened, which I don't know. Fit all graphs to view. There we go. For some reason I had show graph editor set. I just want the selected properties. Show the selected properties. Now, why? Show audio waveforms, show the in and out. Expressions editor. Fine. Well, that's a conundrum, isn't it? Okay, so right here. Where's my little Bezier handles? In the can't. I'm in the selection tool mode. I am. Let me see if I just hold Alt and click on this. No. Odd. Odd, folks. Odd. Let me save it. Let me close it out and see if I can, if it'll redo it. See the joys of After Effects, right? Might have to figure that out later. But then we're almost really done with this. We just have to add some motion blur to it. We're going to add a title real quick, and possibly a fake shadow. I'm going to show you guys a couple little tips. Oh my gosh, no, my little Jimmy Deans. Oh, it didn't work. Haha, nice, never mind. I win. Okay, let me try this. No, okay. So you guys just ease this ball and just make this curve look smooth. It should be an S curve for this one. So it's not such a big deal if it's nothing crazy. I mean, it only happens over a few. Maybe it's because I did this. Yes. So I did its own easing up here. I think that might be why. It's because I adjusted the path that way. But either way, it actually looks pretty good when it flies off. I'm going to save it. Just ease them normally. It doesn't have to look like a bounce or anything. It can be an S curve, which means that it's, remember, slow movement out of the first keyframe and a slow movement into the first keyframe. And so let me go back to the dope sheet view. And let's go back kind of to the beginning of the timeline. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so you guys can see. And let's add some motion blur to all of this to make it all look, really we only have to add it to the flight ball. We don't have to add it to that one. To make it look faster, right? All of a sudden it moves down. Chugs, gone. This one should have motion blur. Add that motion blur on it. That's why it kind of looks like it's disconnected there for a second. The first one doesn't need the motion blur, but the rest of them do. There we go. And then it chucks that ball into non-existence. I don't know. It's gone. It's on a different planet now, you guys. I don't know if you guys have watched Sandlot, but that was like one of my favorite movies as a kid. And um just the thought of accidentally throwing a baseball into a neighbor's yard who had a big scary dog was like always a thought in the back of my mind where I was like, keep it. I don't want it anymore. But that's kind of what this makes me think of. Like you chucked it into your neighbor's yard and now you gotta go tell them sorry. My random brain, I know. Okay, cool. Looks good. I added the motion blur. Let's kind of let's clean this up a little bit. Let's pre-compose some things and kind of make this more, let's put this into a main layer. So let's rename this to main. And then let's pre-compose. I think I want to pre-compose it with, because we're going to add a shadow behind this. And so let's pre-compose right now just all of the robot together by itself. Shift Control C, and then we'll just put robot arm animation. Hit OK. And now whenever you do this and you're working with vectors and you have continuously rastered checked off in the layers, make sure that when you pre-compose that you check this off again, because if you don't, you'll have issues with it. So you want to just click that again. And then let me turn on. Then when you do this, you have to make sure that motion blur is also turned on the main comp up here. Because if you don't, and you unclick it, I don't think the motion blur, it doesn't work. Whoa, that was kind of crazy. Oop. What happened? I think because... Oh, because the parenting came undone. Okay, so when you guys are pre-composing, let me go back. Make sure that any of the ones that are... They have to be because technically the only one that can't have a shadow is the ball in flight. So let's select all of these. Let's select everything and just hit Control and uncheck the ball flight. And then we're going to Shift Control C and pre-compose all of it. And so we'll name this Robot Arm Animation. Robot Arm Animation underscore pre-comp. Oh my gosh. There we go. Hit OK. And then that should click the vector. Make sure the motion blur is on. It should work just fine. Grabs it, chucks it, it's gone. Okay, so that's good. Save it. And now let's create the shadow. So we are going to duplicate this layer, Control D. We're going to bring that down to the bottom here. Right there. I'm going to change the color of this to maybe just OJ or something like that. PP. What a lovely, lovely name for it. And so I'm going to select this layer. So there's an extra robot layer happening behind, right? Let us make this one a 3D layer. So like let's stop right there where it comes in. We'll make the bottom one a 3D layer. And then we're going to rotate it down and kind of to the side. So let's change our camera view real quick. Or actually, let's just hit R on here and start looking at what kind of, I think it's a Y. Nope, not the Y. Not that one. Not that one. What the heck? Not there. This one. But it's only with the one thingy. And I think that's because none of the other ones on the inside of the comp are 3D. So we have to come in here and turn all these on. Make them all 3D. Then come back here. And then once readjust it on the X rotation. There we go. But before we do that, let's move this anchor point. So, yeah. Anchor point. Oof. Let's go back real quick. Let's just delete that. Save it. Here it comes in and throws it. Let's duplicate it again. Duplicate it. Bring it down. And then before we turn it into a 3D layer, let's change where the anchor point is. Kind of just at the bottom of the center of the base. And now let's turn it into a 3D layer. Boop. And then go in here and turn all of these on as a 3D layer. And now let's rotate it down. Oh, come on, Naz. Make sure you're in the selection tool. There we go. Kind of like this. And then let's rotate it slightly on its z-axis so it's a little bit further in this way. And so we kind of have a shadow happening here. I feel like maybe it should be maybe a little further back. No, the rotation. Let's adjust the rotation a little bit. Maybe just keep it on an angle a little bit more. It might not show as much because my base is rather wide and there's no like in the example online with one of Casey's designs, he has like a cutout window and one of his robot like the bases, and so you can see a little bit better, but I think this should work right now for us. And then so it's gonna, let's just make sure it doesn't get really cut off when it goes to reach down. It's gonna throw it. I'm gonna actually bring it down more. Rotate it back more. Give me that X. There we go. Drag it down, rotate it down slightly more. Again, rotate it a little bit off to the side a little bit more. Bring it up. It might just be a little bit of playing around with what you think looks good. And then let's make it all black, right? Obviously, this isn't the color of shadow, so let's go to Effects and Presets and type in Levels. And then we are going to grab this color correction levels and we're going to drop it right on this 3D layer. And then we're going to take the blacks and we're just going to crush this. So we're just going to crush the color all the way down. Sometimes you need to extend that a little bit so it's like fully black. And then we're going to drop the opacity of it. And with a shadow, like the opacity is very light, like maybe 20%. I mean, you don't want to see a ton of it there. And it still is way too sharp, right? Shadows aren't sharp unless you have a spotlight on you. And so we're going to want to add a Gaussian blur to that as well. Just to give it a little softness, a little fuzziness. I'll hit 1 here and let's see what it looks like. Okay, we need to obviously crank it up quite a bit more. Let's go to 5. More. 15. 30. So I'm like kind of just doubling it each time. I think 30 is not bad. Maybe 25. Not bad. All right. So you see that the ball has a the ball right here has a little shadow on it too. Oh, it disconnected somehow. It got moved. Okay, so right here it jumps. What's happening? Why does it move from here to here? Let us find out. Let us move this one back this way. Let's see if sometimes when you're putting things into 3 layers, sometimes they can throw you off. So I'm going to delete that and I'm going to reslice that one so that it's still in the same spot. And then I'm just going to parent this again. Sometimes you just end up doing work over again for no stupid reason. I hit it to the fingers over too. And then make sure you turn that motion blur on. That second one. There we go. Okay, so if I play it back again, grabs it, picks it up, tosses it. It all has motion blur. It all looks good. It's all in the same spot now. Cool. So then we're going to go back to our main comp. Alright, we have it coming in, grabs it, picks it up, throws it. Sweet. Alright, and we really only have like one more really thing to do, and that's add a title. So where do I want to put this title? I'm going to put it behind here. So I'm going to grab my text tool, put here, type in robot arm, select it, change the font. I've been using Roboto this whole time, so I'm just going to stick with what I know right now. Ooh, Roboto slab. Black. There we go. Look at that. The slab obviously has a serif at the bottom. Oh, that's my jam. I just like a sans serif font. And then I'm going to increase the size. Let's make it like 250. Center it. Go to my composition, hit a line. Obviously the color needs to change because it's the same color. And I need to drop it behind everything. Let's change the size and make it a little bit bigger. Maybe like 275. I think that looks good. Select it, make sure that you can do on the bottom. It doesn't have to be animated. Let's kind of put it right here. Notice how my background, by the way, I've kept it in my main comp. And the flying ball has to be in the main comp too, or else it's going to have a shadow, and you don't want to have a shadow on the one that's being chucked into outer space. Let's change the font color. to like, everything's blue in this, so let's keep it the blue thing, go like a dark blue. Robot arm. Alright. Let's put let's make it a 3D layer and push it back into 3D space maybe. Or, let's add a shadow to this too. Let's duplicate it. Make that one a 3D layer. Rotate it down. And then V. Rotate it around slightly. That's not going to work because of where the, there, right there. Let's change it to black. This is easy to change to black. We just go up here and change the color right there. Hit V. Ah, no. Unclick. And then let's add that Gaussian blur that we have here. We can just select it, copy it, and then go down here and paste it. So it's the same. And then let's drop the opacity down to like 20 again. Nice. So then, our text. In fact, we can bring the opacity of this up slightly. Of both of them. And maybe the scale of this. Let's scale this up slightly. Can't be too much. Just by a little bit. And then same with, in fact, I wouldn't do it with the text because of the edges. Let's see if we can do it with the, let's see if we can scale this. Like 105. Oh, that's not bad. I mean, if you do, if you don't, I'm not gonna be the shadow's an optional choice. And then we could add a gradient to kind of make like a floor on the background. So we can go up to select your background solid and just go up to your effects and type in gradient ramp. RAMP, GRANDIENT. Or I'm sorry, GRADIENT. There we go. Gradient ramp right here. Drop it down on here. Swap the colors there. Let me make this one kind of that blue. You can go dark blue. Pick this color and lighten it. Wait a minute. And then start a ramp. Drop this down. So it kind of creates like a small floor there for you guys to see. Grabs it, picks it up, chucks it, and tosses it. Awesome. So that is your robot arm for this week, you guys. Nice. We're ending class a little bit early here. Half an hour early, which is nice. If you guys have questions about this, please let me know. The illustrating might honestly take the longest part. I think the animation part kind of comes rather quickly since really the only thing you're doing is like a positional change on your base, the rotational changes on the arms, plus your fingers, right? Your fingers might have a position or rotation change. The picking up of the ball and the kind of the follow through. The follow through, I think, is the nicest part on this. Slowly slows down. If I were to make changes on mine right now, I think what I would do is if I were to give myself feedback, right, is I would probably adjust the colors a little bit so that these can stand out a little bit more against this background. Maybe I will change this, because if I change this font to white, it'll blend in with this. So maybe I would rethink like the coloration of my design and maybe make the arms blue and only little sections white. or just stay away from white kind of altogether and just go with grays. But yeah, this is, pretty fun one, pretty easy one. The rigging is really important. Remember, like it'll apply to doing a character animation as well as really just making sure that if we go through this whole process and we make a list of what it is. Let's do that real quick. So, T, and then I think, make this smaller. So let's make a list of what we've done here. So in Illustrator, you have to make sure make sure any layer or any object that is going to be animated will be on a separate layer. And this is important. This takes a little bit of forethought and planning, right? You have to know, okay, I'm going to move this. I'm going to move this. This is going to change. This isn't going to change. And you might have to go back and forth through into Illustrator a couple times, but this is, I think, the planning out is the longest part. And then inside of After Effects, when you're rigging using the pick whip or the parent drop down menu to link them together. Remember too that everything really everything caps everything is rooted in the base of the robot arm, right? The base of it is really what moves everything. So the base is not going to be parented to anything. The base is a standalone. That's like the master parent. Here's one about, let's put on parenting. Let's put it deserves its own section. Parents control the children, but the children do not control the parent. And remember, as you go down the chain of events, right, the parent and child relationship will change because, like this first arm or the link 1 or the arm 1 is the parent to the link 2 or the arm 2. And the child is the link 2 or arm 2 is the child of the parent. But then the wrist is the child of the link 1. So you see how it like continuously goes down and drops down the chain. And then, let me see here. What else do I want to say? Is there anything else I really want to hit on? Let me go through my notes real quick. Oh yeah. Um, follow through. Adding follow through after the arm throws the ball is important. And then making sure the switcheroo is accurate, right? So you want to make sure that you're in appropriate spots on your timeline when you want to like dissect that layer into 3 different layers. Remembering that to essentially, what was it? Shift plus control plus D is how to split a layer. And then adding motion blur. I'm sorry, it's getting kind of dark here. Adding the motion blur. And then, what else do I want to say here? Adding the title, really. Oh, continuously making sure continuously, I think I spelled that right, rasterize is on, is turned on all of your layers, including pre-comps. Now, there's another thing that has happened in past classes that hasn't happened in this class because I appropriately sized the robot arm right away. But let's say you've sized your robot arm and for some reason it's being cut off at the top or the back or wherever. It's like being cut off because it's too big for your composition. Well, when you pre-compose that robot arm, you just come in here, make sure your main composition is the 1920 by 1080. That is the most important one because now, look, this one it's pre-composed. I can move this thing around and scale this thing around as I please, right? In fact, I am going to take this shadow and I'm going to link it here. I'm going to parent it, make it a child of the main robot arm so that when I move this, that will move along with it, right? But remember that this one ball, the flight ball, is not connected inside of these, so you will have to keep that in mind if you start moving the stuff around or scaling it. Or you can do the ball part last after you've got like your robot arm set in stone. But yeah, if all of a sudden you come into your main composition and it's getting cut off or some kind of issues happening, just go into this composition here and into your composition settings and just like double or triple this, until it's big enough that it's not getting cut off and you're not having any issues. And then you'll go back into your main composition and just scale everything down a little bit so that it fits. And then you shouldn't have an issue right there. But yeah, that's kind of how we do this. And if you guys have any questions, go ahead and ask me. The project is due. I think I have it due. Let's go here real quick. I actually don't mind this duo authenticating factor thing if it just would not happen every 2 seconds. That's the only problem. But when do I have it due? We're gonna do robot in 3D next week, which will be fun because we're gonna be using some like motion, kind of like a mocap emulator type thing. It'll be fun. But when's the due date? If you go to student view, does it tell me? Yeah, Monday. Gosh, when's Monday? The 27th. All right, so it's due on the 27th. I mean, I would try and keep up because it's just going to get more complex and stuff as we go further down. So just try and keep up with that. And but next Tuesday we're going to go over everyone's revisions and any other kind of stuff that's been straggling. Oh yeah, I will say this. There was, I think, Sarah at the end here. Let me watch this real quick. If everyone else is done, that's great. I'm going to give Sarah just some feedback on this because it wasn't turned in on time, but I still want to make sure that she gets some feedback here. So, but first of all, I really like your design choices happening here. The colors are great. Great color palette, good textures on here. Overall, really nice choice. It looks really cool. The motion of everything looks really cool. The only thing I would say is that this hammer, this last hammer, kind of comes to a quick jerky stop. So I would just make sure you just check the curves on this one real quick. This one looks great. Good job on that. I would maybe just move that pepper behind the word wait so that it doesn't cut off the little ping pong ball there. But cool. Yeah, cool. Good job on these. I actually want to check this hammer, this back hammer real quick. No, that one was nice. And it actually slowed down rather quickly. A lot quicker than this one did, which is perfect because that ball is supposed to be heavy. These look great. I think you added the heavy ball looks good too. Try adding some camera shake for when this heavy ball hits. And then I would just have this ping pong ball just to continue bouncing off. I mean, ooh, that one's nice too. Good job on your squash and stretch one. I would just, yeah, on your weight, just add, move this one behind the text so it doesn't get in the way of this ball. And then just make this ball continue bouncing a lot longer, like past the end of the video, what you're actually going to use. And then, but other than that, great textures on everything. Everything looks really nice. I love the blue color you have for this dice. I would just add one more light, maybe off to the side and brighten it up, or just slightly drop the saturation maybe of the red. I don't know. Personal choice. It's not that big of a deal. And I don't know if the video continues after this because it goes black. It might have just been some, it looks like it could be a rendering error issue. Because I want to see 3 bounces, and I don't know how many you get here. Let me count. 1, 2, 3. Oh, yeah. Give me that full last bounce. I want to see the whole thing. It's really nice. It looks great, though. Really good job on that, Sarah. And so that's really just your feedback for this one. All your timing and animation looks really nice and smooth. So it looks like you were paying attention. I know you were following along in class and stuff too, so that's always helpful to watch it first. That was always the way I had to learn this. I had to watch things first and then I had to rewatch it later, and take notes. So absorb as much as I could and then but it looks really good. And then make those changes and I will and make those changes for the next revision round. And I'll get in there and I'll give you a grade for that. So, all right, guys, have a good night. Enjoy. I'll see you on Tuesday. Exit. Stop stream.